Okay, let's get right into it. We're going to take a hard look at something happening all around us right now, the staggering rate at which life on our planet is disappearing. So here's our game plan. We'll start with just how amazing Earth's biological wealth is. Then we'll get into the tough stuff, how it's all disappearing. We'll look at the incredible speed of this crisis, unmask the four main culprits, and then tackle the biggest question of all. Why should you even care? All right, first up, let's try to wrap our heads around the sheer scale of life we're talking about. I mean, it took billions of years of evolution to create this living library of species. It's a wealth we just sort of inherited. The numbers are they're almost silly. When we say biodiversity, we're not talking about a handful of different animals. We live in a world with over 20,000 different kinds of ants, more than 300,000 species of beetles, and something like 20,000 different species of orchids. That is the biological treasure we're dealing with. But here's the thing. While that biological wealth is immense, our planetary bank account is being emptied out fast. This is the great disappearance. And unfortunately, we've been keeping a tally of the losses. If you look at the records from the IUCN Red List, the last 500 years have been brutal. Hundreds of species have just vanished. You probably know some of the famous ones: the dodo, gone forever in the 1600s; the Steller sea cow, which was wiped out just 27 years after Westerners first laid eyes on it; the quagga, a really unique type of zebra; and the thylacine, the Tasmanian tiger. The last one died in a zoo back in 1936. But this isn't just history. The threat today is massive, and it's hitting some groups harder than others. Right now, nearly a third of all amphibian species are staring down the barrel of extinction. It's almost the same for gymnosperms, those ancient plants like conifers. And for mammals, our own relatives, a shocking 23% are at risk. So, you see, these aren't just one-off tragedies. They're all symptoms of a much bigger problem. Scientists are calling it the sixth mass extinction. And the thing that makes this one so terrifying is its speed. It's completely unnatural. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, wait a minute, haven't mass extinctions happened before? And yeah, you're absolutely right. The fossil record clearly shows 5 other times in Earth's history when life was nearly wiped out. But this one, the one happening right now, is a completely different beast. So what makes it so different? It really comes down to one thing. Those past 5 extinctions were caused by nature. Giant asteroids, supervolcanoes, stuff that played out over millions of years. This 6th extinction, it's being caused by one species: us. Human activity is the engine here, and the rate of loss is just off the charts. And here it is. This is probably the most important number to understand. Scientists estimate that species are going extinct today somewhere between 100 and 1,000 times faster than the natural rate, before we came along. Just let that sink in for a moment. This isn't a slow, natural cycle. This is a system in freefall. Okay, so if we're the cause, what are we actually doing that's so destructive? Well, ecologists have identified 4 main drivers of this crisis, and they've given them a pretty ominous name: the evil quartet. So here are the 4 horsemen of the biodiversity apocalypse. First, and by far the biggest, is habitat loss. Next up is overexploitation, which is basically us just taking too much too fast. Then you have alien species invasions, throwing whole ecosystems out of whack. And finally, there's the quiet domino effect of co-extinctions. Let's start with the big one. Habitat loss is, hands down, the #1 reason species are disappearing. And there's no better example than the tropical rainforests. Places like the Amazon, people call them the lungs of our planet for a reason. They used to cover more than 14% of the Earth's land surface. Today, it's less than 6%. We're clearing them for farming, for cattle ranching, at a rate that's just impossible to believe. Every single minute, huge areas are just gone. And it's simple, right? When you destroy an animal's home, it has nowhere else to go. The other 3 are just as devastating. You've got overexploitation. That's how we lost the Steller sea cow. Humans just couldn't stop hunting them. Then you have alien invasions. A new species gets introduced and just wreaks havoc. A prime example is the Nile perch in Africa's Lake Victoria. Its introduction led to the extinction of more than 200 native fish species. 200! And then there's co-extinction. This one's stealthy. One species disappears, and another species that relied on it, well, it's doomed too. Like a flower that loses its one and only pollinator. And that brings us to the most important question in all of this. We know what's happening, we know why it's happening, but so what? Does it really matter if we lose a few thousand species? I mean, it's a legitimate question. It feels kind of abstract. Does my life actually change if a certain species of tree frog in a jungle halfway around the world disappears? To really understand the answer, we need a good analogy. And honestly, the best one I've ever heard comes from a Stanford ecologist named Paul Ehrlich. He calls it the rivet popper hypothesis, and it makes everything crystal clear. Okay, picture an airplane. That airplane is an ecosystem. All the parts of the plane are held together by thousands and thousands of tiny rivets. Each one of those rivets is a species. Now imagine you're on a flight and every passenger decides to pop out just one rivet to take home as a souvenir. Losing one rivet? Probably no big deal. The plane will still fly. Maybe you could even lose a few dozen. But at what point does the plane become unsafe? At what point do you pop the one rivet that causes the whole thing to fall apart? And what if you don't just pop a rivet from a seat cushion, but from the wing? That's what ecologists call a keystone species. Losing that one could cause immediate catastrophic failure. That's what we're doing to our planet. We are popping rivets one by one with no idea which one is the one that holds the wing on. And maybe that's the greatest tragedy of all. We're losing life so fast, countless species will be gone before we even know they existed. It's like we're standing by watching a massive library burn to the ground, and we haven't even had a chance to read the titles of the books inside. The only real question left is, what are we going to do before the last book turns to ash?